Frak, this podcast, come and listen to us talk about Battlestar Galactica. It's a show that we're talking about. Hello, interwebs, and welcome to the Frak, this podcast. I am your anticipatory host, Jesse Gender, and I am joined, as always, by...
It's Vera. Why do you got to use freaking long words that takes me forever to
I
write?
don't. Hey, next time you complain. Next time I'll use anti-disestablishmentarianist. That's an adjective that I can use, definitely. I will
Uh-huh.
look up the world's longest adjective and use it if you complain too much. I will threaten you with having to write that shit down.
Okay.
All right, I'll do it. All right, I'll look it up.
Well, you say that as if it'll help you. For all you know, you've already fucked up.
I'm almost certain I've already fucked up. Doesn't mean you can't
Mhm.
write it down.
I
Yeah.
would I would probably just write that down as a quick scribble of a middle finger.
I'll take it. I will take it. How you doing, Vera?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I get you. I am also exhausted, but you have a vacation coming up next week, so.
I do have a vacation coming up next week, but of course, when you're self-employed and do this kind of nonsense for a living, going on vacation means working your ass off so that you're far enough ahead on work so that you won't be behind however long you were on vacation when you come back from vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the lead up to the vacation makes you really need the vacation.
Yeah, yeah. It is an interesting it's always a frustrating thing because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to just double up all my work for the next 2 weeks just so I can have a week off. But yeah, I don't know if that helps. I just need a vacation for my vacation planning is usually how it works.
Yeah.
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 And like you don't even still maintain a fixed schedule for your videos. So
I swear, the
when
Starfleet
when
Academy video will be out by the time you hear this. It will definitely be out because it is legally required. It will definitely, it's coming out in 4 days as of this recording. So, I mean, it'll be definitely out when this video releases. So,
and Ferengi?
hope and
Silence.
dream.
Absolute silence.
if you,
I
if,
like
if
you
you
could
wish
see the
hard enough,
panic behind your eyes.
if you dream hard enough, if you pay enough gold press platinum to the blessed exchequer, you'll get the video, which is true.
Me-
Just pay Patreon and you'll get it.
yeah, subscribe to Jesse Gender Plus
Yeah.
and
I mean, quite literally, go on Patreon. It's
yeah,
on Nebula. Pay me money, and you'll get it. And that is truly the Ferengi way. Well,
I suppose it would be on brand to have it behind a paywall forever.
yeah, I think so. I think it is
I
true.
mean, on brand for Ferengi, not on brand for an anarchist at all,
No,
but
no,
you
not at
know.
all. But I gotta respect those who I'm honoring in the video. So it's called cultural respect, and that is anarchistic. So I'm respecting
I'm
their
pretty
culture,
sure
Vera.
I'd call that appropriation, but you know, whatever.
I think knowing the Ferengi, they'd be fine with me exploiting their culture as long as it's for profit. That's the whole point.
All right, fine, fine. You got me there.
Oh well, that is certainly some fun there. And I forgot the name of the episode that I was going to talk about. Well, you know what Ferengis use to weigh their latinum? Scales. And we're talking about the episode Blood on the Scales for our comments this week. That was definitely a smooth as butter transition there. um
Flawless, truly.
Yes, yes, yes. Let's see. Well, first comment that I do want to read is one from Romler that Vera, you already commented on, but I want to bring it up here. Romler says, if the scene where Anders gets shot feels like it's weirdly edited, that's because it was filmed with a double after Michael Trucco got a spinal injury similar to Christopher Reeves in a car accident. He was pretty much miraculously lucky and regained full mobility within a year, but at the moment they needed a way to take Anders out of the action quickly in the middle of this very action-heavy storyline in a way that he could just be in bed from then on. So yes, he is in bed for the rest of the series going forward. So outside of this movie that we're about to watch, The Plan, which was filmed well after the series ended.
Significantly later.
Yes.
Um, So yeah, honestly, as far as last minute adjustments to accommodate for that kind of thing, one of the better ones. Like I kind of rolled my eyes at like, oh yeah, we're gonna have him be an info dump and then brain dead. But like knowing the circumstances now, I'm like, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, no, it
For
worked.
for last minute rewrites, boy, it's usually so much worse than that.
Yeah, well, we'll have you be our info dump machine. It'll be perfect. And they still do things with him. He is still around doing other things beyond just being brain dead. So you'll see. But it'll be a thing. Um, Chris Clark
I
says,
if this show wants to stop doing things anytime, I'd be totally fine with that.
well, Chris Clark 7285 said, I hate how outraged Adama and Starbuck are for this whole arc. Doesn't just make them come across as huge hypocrites, it makes them look stupid. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? It decimated the stakes for the rest of the series because if they can survive mismanaging this situation this badly with this few long-term consequences, what the fuck is even the point anymore? It's so frustrating that the Mutineers' biggest mistake was not immediately executing Galactica's leadership. When the bad guys fail because they're not as bloodthirsty as the main characters, it's always going to bother me. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of
Again, designated bad guys, good guys.
good guys
These
get away
people
with
will
whatever because
always
they're good
be
guys.
they will always be wrong in their actions because they are bad, and they will always be correct in their actions because they are good.
Yep.
Being right or wrong are inherent traits as far as the morality of the show overall, but that specific episode definitely.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read one more comment here that you also responded to. I'm going to read your response too, but we can talk about it further. Where it's where's my jetpack? Says two things. One, after making so much of the show trial, they skip over the question of putting Gata and Zarek on trial. Extrajudicial execution is bad when the baddies do it. Two, the representation of Gata's disability is gross, right? They seem to link it with moral weakness. And then your response to this, which I agree with, is I read it less as linking to his moral weakness and more using it as a motivator for why Gata is so angry he goes to mutiny, which isn't much better. And I talked about the becoming disabled made me into the bad guy trope before. So,
Yeah, I did a video a few years back about physical disability representation, and disabled villains was a pretty sizable chunk of that video. Because boy, oh boy, does it happen a
mm,
lot, either as just shorthand if it is a disfiguring disability at all, especially, scars or disfigurements. But if it's not that, the number of times that, oh, I became disabled, so I'm going to be a villain now is shockingly common.
yeah, yes.
I mean, I think the main reason I didn't bring it up is because while I do think you can fairly accuse this show of doing that, they did put it on a slow burn,
Mm,
which I think helped. I say helped, like they shouldn't have done it, but it made it less egregious than this kind of thing often feels, where
mm,
it's like somebody wakes up and like they're missing a limb and they're like, ah, I want to burn the world down now. It's like, no, he's not that. It makes his life harder and that compounds what's going on. And it is still ultimately playing the same playbook, but I don't know. It was done with a little more restraint than it often is, which
yeah,
is which is why I don't think I thought to clock it, because there wasn't really a moment where it became egregious in that moment. It's only kind of a problem taken holistically.
yeah, I mean, I think what makes it, again, it doesn't necessarily fully take the stink off of it, but it kind of feels like a compounding factor in terms of his resentment overall, which I think his resentment overall outside of his racism against Cylons is fairly understandable. So I think like adding
Well,
it
and
at,
I mean, also as far as that goes, I'm not even sure how unwarranted that is, because like,
I mean, yeah, I mean,
again,
it gets, yeah.
the show is taking the position, oh, Cylons are people, and if you're prejudiced against Cylon, that's like racism. And I'm over here going, no, it's fucking not,
I mean,
because
it
of
goes.
the of what you constructed in universe. No, it is not equivalent.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, also, too, it's like one of those things of like, it's not good, but it's also like they're allowed to be pissed off at fucking Cylons for everything the Cylons did to them. So, like, and,
Yeah,
it's presented as racism within the show, but it's also understandable fucking anger at the people who literally led a genocide against them. So it's like, how much can I shame
yeah,
them too much for it?
it's a very common writing mistake where it's like if the audience is aware of something, the characters get judged for not also knowing and understanding that
Hmm.
thing, even when it's not reasonable for them to know or understand that. Like, I don't think it's reasonable for Gata to have an understanding of the Cylons as people. Like, the audience knows that, and therefore is expected to judge him
Hmm.
for not holding that belief. But in universe, there's no reason he should.
Hmm. Yeah, very much so. Especially since we see like especially even in the plans we'll talk about now is like the Centurions are very much seen as like less than people. Even within the show, it's sort of like, yeah, they're not full people. They don't have full sentience. It's an odd distinction. So
Yep.
anyways, speaking of, let us get into this week's. I'm not even going to transition. We're going to talk about this week's movie, The Plan. So, or as I like to call it, narrative plot hole filler.
God, you know what my very first note was?
Hmm.
Fuck, it's almost 2 hours.
Yeah, it is 2 hours of narrative plot hole filling.
Oh, Jesus. Like I thought it was gonna be 90 minutes
Yeah,
coming into
no.
it. Like I couldn't imagine this exercise lasting. It's almost 2 hours. God damn.
Yep, very, very much so. So let us get into this one, and worth noting, as I mentioned in before, but this movie was made after Battlestar Galactica finished. It was the last official production, I think, done on the sets. I mean, Caprica was also starting up around this time too, but they used completely different sets. So this is the last official Galactica production outside of Blood and Chrome, which was done on different sets and years later. So we're saying that even though we're watching it now, because it kind of honestly, it kind of fits better, frankly, here, as much as this thing can fit anywhere. So yeah,
Also, like this is like a coda. That is, oh fuck, that's weak sauce, man.
as like this is the last thing that we all got, and I was like, oh, all right.
I have a feeling that that more than anything is probably why it's not well regarded by the fandom.
Hmm.
Because like, and again, I don't know how the show ends, but like whatever the ending is, whether it's good or whether it's bad, to have the last thing that you put out be here's 2 hours of plot hole filler. Like that's just weak, dude.
Yeah.
That's what like this thing is the epitome of what like shit like supplementary comic books are made to do.
Yes, that's basically that's actually a good comparison here. Like this feels like it should have been a tie-in comic. Like would have been a great
Yeah.
tie-in comic rather
Oh
than a whole
yeah.
actual movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's see what 4, 5 issues tops
Yeah.
limited comic run. Yeah, this would have been fine.
Alas, that is not what we get here. We have to spend everyone's time. At least people got paid, you know? So, uh,
Yeah. Well,
we
you got paid if they liked you enough to
to
bring you
hire
back,
you.
as opposed to create a substitute character and or pretend you don't exist, depending on who you're playing. But you know, we'll deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get there. Alrighty, well, let us jump into this. We start off with hearing different Cylon voices speaking the normal intro from season one, leading all into like the plan. They have a plan, that sort of thing. So we have like Ty and a bunch of others say all of it.
Look,
Um,
man, they
hmm?
I kind of want to spill the beans on this right now. It's called the plan. That's a big misnomer, actually.
They don't really have a plan. Like
They don't
Cavill
really
kind of
have a
has like a
plan.
vague inkling of an idea, but it's not really a
Like
plan.
the plan was for the nuking to work.
Yes.
And when it didn't, everything else is just a mad scramble. It's like, this is not a fucking plan.
Yeah, it's an improv, as they say at one point.
Yeah.
So, one thing I'll note here that I do like, and I wish we had gotten more of in the show, is throughout this movie we get various shots of Cylon ships, and we get more than just the typical what we normally get, which was like the base star and resurrection ship. We get a few other different ships, like big Cylon ships throughout this movie that I just like seeing. It was kind of cool. As just an aside here, wish we got to see more of the designs in the show proper. But going further, we start off with the Cavils. We have the two Cavils that we saw at the end of season 2 of Battlestar Galactica. One that was captured on or came back with Anders from Caprica and was with the Resistance cell there. And we have the Cavil that was the pastor, preacher, father, whatever you want to call it, religious figure on the Galactica that took Galen's, the chief's confession at the end of season 2. So we have these two
Mhm.
characters, and these are kind of our two lead Cavils that we'll be following. So I will call one Galactic Cavill, and I will call one what I came up with
Capra Cavill.
Capra Cavill. So Galactic Cavill and Capra Cavill are our two ones here. But they are being led to the airlock to be extrajudicially murdered after they delivered their message from the end of season 2, and they're talking to each other. It's like Galactic Cavill is saying, "I was doing fine here. Thanks for exposing me." And Resista Cavill or Capra Cavill says, if you wiped out this fleet in the eyes of our parents, we would have." I didn't want to, we shouldn't have killed them. It was a mistake. And Galactic Caval's like, we had a foot on the throat of humanity, and our problem was we didn't step down hard enough. And Capra Cavill says, I learned a great deal from the humans. Every killing was an error. And Galactic Cavill says, if you're right, this whole project was doomed from the very beginning. And the other Cavill says, yes, from the very top. So we have all of that.
Yeah.
Which said,
Here's about the one main thing I'm going to give this. Focusing on Cavill was a good call because these two iterations of Cavill are the most interesting thing going on here.
yes, very, very much so. And their different philosophies as they grow throughout the throughout the movie is the most interesting thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
We
still
jump.
doesn't work overall as a quote unquote movie, but
If there's any
that is the most interesting
if
thing.
there's I think the biggest problem with this movie, and I'll just say this right here, is it struggles to find a reason to exist other than narrative plot hole filling. Like there's no real story here, and the closest it gets to is the two parallel stories of these two Cavils. So that is the closest we get to a good narrative arc here, and in so much as it does work, that's what works. But the rest of it is
Yeah,
just
like
plot hole
that.
filling.
I unfortunately, for the purposes of treating this like a movie, that is less like a narrative through line and feels more like they compressed a season's worth of television into 2 hours and tried to call that an arc
Yes.
for these two characters specifically. And nope, that
Yeah.
does not really work.
Yeah, if this had been played out, I mean, it wouldn't have worked just given the structure of the original series, but if this had played out as a like arc over the course of 2 seasons with these characters, would have worked decently well, I feel like. But alas.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Alas, we jump back 10 months earlier, 2 weeks before the attack in the colonies, and we have Cavill, the two Cavils, on the resurrection ship with their the final five, their parents, as they say, dad, mom, dad, mom, dad, to both of them, and they're sort of talking to each other. It's like, our parents will be back with us soon. They won't survive the death of the colonies. Life among the humans will have humbled them, and apologies will come tumbling from their lips. And one of the Cavils says, well, yeah, we should be prepared for some very sticky hugs in a sort of sarcastic way. But certainly their thing here is they plan to see their parents among the colonies, and then have them die during the Holocaust that they're planning, and which case they'll come back and be like, "Oh, you were right the whole time. Humans suck." That's their anticipation.
Yeah,
Um,
like it is very. This was something that had not occurred to me
mhm.
prior to the plan. And like I kind of called that this general thing was going to happen, that by trying to answer some questions, they were going to make me realize plot holes that I hadn't even realized were there. Because like, so I'm sorry. 4 out of 5 of your lost parents were on a planet that you nuked and somehow all survived. And
Yep.
you hadn't counted on them. Like it was seeing them like have the resurrection pods ready for the final five and realizing, like, oh, you thought they were going to resurrect immediately because you expected them all to die, and like none of them do. Like Ty,
Mhm.
you get a pass on because he wasn't on the planet, but the four that are there, including some who, as far as I can tell, are practically in the blast radius, all survive.
Yeah. Like
What?
Helen
No,
is the only
sorry,
one,
three, because Tyril's
and there's
also on Galactica. But like the idea that these three survive when we're gonna find out two of them, Tori and Ellen, are basically right in blast zones. The fuck?
I will give at least a pass to Ellen a little bit, just because Cavill was literally there, as we'll see in a second, and he does save her life directly. So I'll give that a little bit of credence. It's not totally viable, considering there's a chance that she wouldn't have gotten anything, and why does Cavill himself survive when he also expects to probably die and resurrect there too? So like I'll give it a little bit of wiggle room, but not that much. But yeah, the fact that all five of them do is a bit like, uh-huh. Especially Tori, as we'll see. Tori's the real
Yeah,
big, like,
Tori's total
really,
bullshit.
yeah, utter and complete bullshit, and also doesn't have any any arc this at all either.
She I only remember seeing her in like two scenes.
Yeah,
Once when it's confirmed that she's blowed up, and but like somehow doesn't die, and then once at the very end. Does she show up at all between
I
those?
don't think so, which is odd because she is also one of the few characters in seasons 1 or 2 that was not around for the seasons 1 or 2 of the show and could have had a whole arc that we never saw on the show, and they could have easily done something with her in
They
this
could have
movie.
done a ton with her. Like you could have had, the. I'm trying to think of at what point she got the position
She
with.
got it after Billy died.
I know it was after Billy died. I just can't remember when in the timeline that happened.
It
That was
had to have
that was
been late season 2, so we would have had, like, it's right before we get to Caprica, New Caprica, which is the beginning of season 3. So it's like,
Okay.
yeah,
So
late
like
season
it
two.
could have been
Yeah.
a whole thing with him being like embed yourself with the president. Or trying to encourage her to do that since she doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just not she's literally just in two scenes and nothing. Oh God. I'm getting increasingly infuriated with the nothing that they did with Tori.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, every other Cylon that you revealed, I don't love all the stuff you did, but you at least did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking nothing.
Yep.
Nothing.
Alas. Well, so we have this. We then jump to Caprica City, 14 hours before the destruction of the colonies. We get again, some narrative plot hole filling here. We get Baltar and Six scene where they sort of talk about, like, Six getting inside the mainframe and then Baltar leaving her, and from the miniseries where, she basically, Six turns to someone and says, "Oh, she's meeting somebody." Turns out that person that she was meeting way back in the miniseries was Cavill.
Cavill.
Yes.
Here's what I found funny, because like I had forgotten how much taller than him she is. And
Yeah, she's really tall.
I feel like after the miniseries, they shot them to hide the fact that she is so much because like I swear every time they're ever put together, they're either one or both of them are sitting down or she's bent over.
Hmm.
And so like it's like they tried after the miniseries where like just for a couple shots we see how much taller she is than him, but then once we get into the show proper it's like no, don't let it be clear, like have her bend over again.
But it kind of feels like I mean, I'm not putting this on James Callis. I'm not sure if James Callis was ever this vain, but it has vibes of like Tom Cruise level of like, I need to stand in an apple box and be the same height as everybody, even though he is a shorter man. Which
Yeah.
is apparently a big, like, kind of small, like, I don't know how much of an ego thing it is, but some level of ego thing for him in his movies. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, so we have that. Yeah, it's basically she met with him, and he's sort of like, the plan's going through. Sure, yeah, great, okay. So we plugged that plot hole there. We move on to Cavill
Like
talk.
that's not even a like that doesn't even count as a plot hole.
Yeah.
That's just an unanswered, like, okay, let's be real clear about this, folks. An unanswered question is not the same as a plot hole. A plot hole is a thing that doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
An unanswered question is just an unanswered question. They are not the same thing, although this thing treats both with the same amount of importance, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it very much does. Anyways, it's just like, well, I think it's more just like, we got 2 hours. Let's just answer every question that might be dangling here. Let's do it. So
Ugh.
yeah. We then cut to Cavill is in a bar with Helen, and this is the first scene of we get like, look, there's naked women walking around. You can see boobs in this movie.
There's gonna be a lot of that.
Yeah.
Can I note something here that
Mhm.
occurred to me since the last time we talked?
Yeah.
Something was feeling off to me about Ellen, and I
Mm.
wasn't sure what it was, and I
I
think
keep
I
saying
figured
Helen
it
for some
out.
reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you've been doing that for the entire
Yeah. Yeah. For some reason, I keep saying
podcast.
Helen. Yeah.
But something was bugging me about her, and I wasn't sure what it is, and I think I figured out what it is.
Hmm.
She's a completely different character now,
Mm.
post the reveal. Like
Mm.
all the other Cylon, all the other Final Five, yes, finding out impacted them, but they're still fundamentally the same people. Like that's part of the purpose of them, or at least part of the what they tried to do with them, is to show how realizing they were Cylons didn't fundamentally change who they were, but now they have to adopt and adapt and figure out what this means. But they didn't just suddenly become different people. Now, I suppose you can, I guess the one thing I can grant is she got her full memories back, the others didn't. But that's just a technical explanation for the fact that she's the only one who is a completely different fucking person when she was human versus when now we know she's a Cylon. It's just not even the same character. I actually think it's kind of a lie to say that Ellen came back. She didn't. They have a totally new character wearing her face.
Yeah, I mean, presumably she has the memories of both, and so they're kind of integrated, but that's not really entirely clear.
That's not
Yeah.
how it's played at all. She plays it like a completely different character. There's nary a trace
Yeah,
of
and
the
I
Ellen
would
that we knew.
and I would also I mean I would say like and we kind of get a reference here with Boomer too in this movie of like when they kind of seeded them when Cavill seeded them the final five on Caprica. I think you just erase their old personality and that these people are fundamentally new people. Like Anders, we get the implication that Anders was a scientist of sorts back on Earth when because they all were like building the and same thing with Ty. Like, presumably, we're all working at the same research station together. And I mean, Ty, you could argue maybe was just married to Ellen and she saved him, but like all of them apparently were working together. And I would not clock Anders now as a science guy, but apparently he
No.
was back on Earth and would have had to have been involved in this project. So yeah, they are fundamentally new people because their memories are released, which I think is necessarily true, but it does grate against the themes, as you say, of like, well, we learned we're Cylons, so we're not fundamentally different people. It's like, I guess the revelation that you're Cylons doesn't make you fundamentally different people, but the erasure of your memory sure did, which I guess is true, but cuts against the theme, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so we're at this bar and Ellen is kind of drunk and Cavill is sort of like talking to her as like oh, I'm just a priest hanging out here. We're just chatting. And
Hang out
he's
in a bar like priests do.
yeah, exactly. And Ellen basically says, I haven't learned any goddamn lessons, because Cavill is sort of poking her about like, what are some lessons you learned or anything like that. And she says, like, if you let someone else make you apologize, that's you're selling yourself out, which again sort of like makes Cavill sort of be like, blanching against what she's saying, kind of being like, oh, I guess she didn't learn anything yet, and I still need to, force her to learn her lesson is kind of what he's getting at.
Yeah, which again, given what we just talked about, is weird, given that like she doesn't remember anything from like what lesson was she supposed to learn when you give her a clean slate? Like what?
I mean that
It's
that that part of it I can get. That part of it because again, she does seem to when she comes back in the others in the series proper, she does seem to retain the memories of her time as human Ellen. I'll just call her for lack of a better phrase. And so like maybe she was supposed to have been on a learning journey as human Ellen, being like, yeah, humans really suck as human Ellen. She's like be sort of nihilistic and hate everybody. And then when she comes back as Cylon Ellen, again, I'll just call her for lack of a better term, will have integrated that and be like, yeah, I guess I did learn as a human that humans suck. And then you're right. At least that's what Cavill hopes for. At least that's the
no,
plan.
I get that, but I mean this interaction doesn't work because an Ellen who, as far as she knows, her only life has been her human life,
Mm-hmm.
is telling a man she doesn't know, I haven't learned anything, and he's taken his reaction, and given the themes of the movie overall, he's taking that answer at face value when she's not. Her answer is completely detached from how he's taking it
Yeah.
because he's taking it as if the person that he sent here to learn a lesson has learned nothing, but this is effectively not her. So, like, her saying that for him to ask that question of her and then treat it like an honest answer from a person that she is not even right now is just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then we begin to see the destruction of the colonies by the Cylons. So there's like a whole sequence here that go for it.
I really like what they did with the Bay Stars with
Yeah.
this because I don't remember them doing this, or maybe it was so long ago that I forgot. But they have like, because the Bay Stars have always had like this 6 point thing. It's like two halves. They have them rotate so that it's
Mm.
it's all lined up, and it now basically looks like a 3 point star. That was actually really cool. I really like that.
Yeah, again, I like what they do with the Cylon ships throughout this movie. I think they're very cool, and I wish we had. I generally have liked the Cylon ship designs straight down to like the organic-y stuff that we see inside of them throughout the series. So yeah, at least on that level, the design of all of these things was really cool. So that technical aspect of things, great. You did a good job, show. Right up until the end, you developed that well. Anyways,
So,
we
hats off to the
CGI
to
and
the
effects department.
equivalent person on the crew who made all the little models. We're all,
Yeah.
we're always tipping our hats to whoever it is who's making the little models of the
Yeah.
ships,
The
whether
below
it
the
be in universe or on the crew.
Say what you will about the show, the below the line workers fucking did amazing work. So we'll give them that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anyways, I'll sort of yada yada a few of this and we can kind of talk about it as we go, but it kind of jumps from back and forth for a few things where we hear the hybrid. The hybrid is sort of talking as she sort of narrates, leading this genocide. We hear her say a few things, vaguely thematic, like machines keep pushing time into cogs, like paste into strings into paste again. Only the machines keep using time to make time to make time. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's interestingly thematic if you really wanted to break it down, like do a poetry synopsis of it. But anyway, she's saying all of this as everything goes off. The Silent ships show up. They nuke the planet. We sort of see Anders is in a pyramid training camp, as we know, and he sort of has a moment when he sees all this going down. He says this has all happened before, as he sees the nukes. We do see also at the training camp a Simon is there.
Yeah, which is it's also really weird. I'm going to mention it now because I don't know at what point it would be worth mentioning later, but they shoot Simon weird, or they shoot his reactions weird because there's a number of times where he like kind of side eyes Sam in a way that feels like they're playing it like he knows, but it's very clear later that he doesn't.
mm,
It's strange.
yeah, it is a bit odd. Like he's supposed to know this, but he doesn't. Um, we
Yeah,
also
like that narratively he doesn't know. He can't. And that does get confirmed later that he doesn't know. But like the way they shoot him, especially in these early scenes, that he's always just kind of like little side eye at Sam. It's like, so what the fuck is that? If he
yeah.
doesn't know, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. My only explanation for it, and it's not entirely clear, so maybe you can make this argument, is that Cavill put him there and said, "Hey, keep an eye on this guy," and didn't tell him why. Would be my one guess. So because otherwise, why is he even here to begin with? Like, why would he be following this team anyways? So
Yeah.
that's the only explanation that I could possibly give, and I don't think anything later on confirms nor denies that fact. So that would be what I would
No.
guess.
So I mean, like suitable headcanon, I suppose.
Yeah. But it's like another unanswered question in a thing that is all about let's just fill in the unanswered questions. So,
Yeah. Like you brought up whole new questions in your movie that exist for no reason but to answer the questions.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We also see another Simon with a family on Geminon who manages to survive at one point, as we see. We also get a few shots of Ty on the bridge, sort of a bridge of Galactica. So some shots from the miniseries gets sort of weaved into this, and we'll see that throughout this movie is a bunch of clips from the miniseries or from the show itself and the
They
miniseries.
they did it. They did a pretty good job integrating those clips because like it's rarely just taking the full scene. It
Mm-hmm.
will often be like shots that we saw, but then staying in the same scene and transitioning to new stuff, and it's pretty seamless.
Yeah, no, they do a good job of that. It works pretty well. Um, we see Tori is trying to make a flight, but then as the nukes land, her car sort of gets hit in the blast radius of it. And again, how the fuck she survives that is wild because, yeah, we get a shot of her like getting out of her car and seeing the destruction later on. So she manages to live surprisingly, as we talked about. Um, and yeah, I
Also,
think
how'd she get off the planet?
yeah, it's another sort of odd thing. Um,
Because like all the other people who we know got off the planet either got off on the Raptor that Hilo stayed behind from, and we know she wasn't there because that's how Baltar got off.
hmm
Or like we see what happens with Ellen
hmm
later. So she's the kind of how the fuck did Tori ever get off world?
Magic. Magic. Presumably she
Yeah.
got to a rescue ship, but that's the only answer you can really give. Again, an unanswered question in your movie about answering questions. We do get a quick little scene where Ellen sort of remembers getting saved by Ty back on Earth, that flashback to that, and she says, she sort of remembers that as well, and then she says to Cavill, am I going to die? But then Cavill says, you got so much more to learn, and he rescues her, gets her on a ship, takes them presumably to the Galactica, as we saw
Hmm.
later on. We also get some, again, clips from the miniseries like Adama announcing the Cylon attack. Um, we get to see we get a quick little sequence of the hybrid sort of like saying like all the different planets are burning, and we get shots of all the different planets getting nuked, which was some good CGI, some bad CGI. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. But we get those shots. We get one pretty brutal shot of like destroyed corpses above like a nuclear fire. So that's a pretty dark shot. Um,
The touch that I liked about this actually was the hybrid isn't just saying like this planet is burning. It's like picking specific
buildings, yeah.
features of each planet. So it's like
The
the
courthouses of
the
whatever are
the
burning, and
courthouses of this place are burning. The forests of this place are burning. Like that's it. It's a small touch, but I actually like that as a detail. That
yeah.
it's not just naming planets; it's picking out what was probably the most notable thing about that planet in universe and saying that is burning.
Mm-hmm.
That's there's tiny moments that remind me why I once had hope for this show.
Yeah, I mean,
Once
there
upon a
are.
time when I was young and foolish.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, even throughout this movie, again, it doesn't work as a cohesive whole. This never becomes greater than the sum of its parts. But there are moments in this that I don't dislike. There are moments I don't like, but there are some I do like. We'll get there. Um, I wonder if it'll be scenes where people kiss unnecessarily.
I wonder if it'll be scenes where they do more than that.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, we then on Silent occupied Caprica, we see Anders leading a group after the attack, sort of what will become the resistance, and they see Centurions taking body parts and guarding a container, sort of like collecting the pieces of their dead, as he'll later say. So they get a shot of that. We also see a moment with like again shots in the miniseries of like Lee helping people on Colonial One and Adama learning of the 12 Cylon models, which we still don't get a. I mean, it's implied, I guess, it's Baltar in these shots, but it's still not 100% confirmed that that is the case. So that's still a weird dangling question. Here,
As to who told him,
yeah,
who
it's like
left him the note
it's
that
heavily implied to be Baltar by the shots they use, but they don't confirm it 100%. I think it's mostly because they wanted to be Baltar and they don't have the actor. So
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure every shot of Baltar was archive footage.
yeah.
So
Yeah, so I don't think they had the actor to like definitively be like he's the one that put it here, but yeah, it's not 100% confirmed, but it is heavily implied. We then cut to the first episode of the series, 33. So we get little sequences of that. And we have Cavill talking to Ellen as she's healing, and she says, like, who are you? I need to find Saul. And Cavill sort of says, you know, there are four our parents, four of you are in this fleet. Only father Sam is missing. And for 30 years, you failed to observe the moral failures of humanity against whom you find me lacking. I want you to open your eyes and take a gander of what you think you love. So he's, you know, wants her to still learn a lesson here on the fleet. We
yeah.
then,
There was Oh yeah. So I had a note at this point because like they really do the 33 thing heavy-handed. Like they show the clock with the countdown for the 33 and everything. And that was when my note was like, wow, they really expect the audience to have a really strong memory of the entire show and to just plug this in where it belongs.
mhm.
Because otherwise it's just jumping almost nonsensically from point to point.
Yeah, I remember when I first watched this, I watched it at the end of the series, and I didn't have all the DVDs or anything back then, and hadn't rewatched
Yeah,
the series. So
I was gonna
I'm
say
like, wait,
this.
when did this happen? I don't remember.
Yeah, this thing is like designed for people who already own and have watched the DVD box sets twice.
Yeah, it's for that, or for people like us who have been like binge watching it through and have it in fairly recent memory. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
I mean, you say binge watching. We've been doing one a week, which would have been the release schedule. The only difference is we don't take breaks
breaks.
between seasons.
Yes, yeah. So we've compressed it in about 2 years, what would have been like four. So it's slightly
Yeah.
fresher in a memory than those who watched it at the time, but not terribly much so. Anyways, we cut to Anders leading the resistance and sort of coming up with a plan. He's like, oh, we have this idea from this old movie where we can put a bomb on a Centurion body part, and we can they'll take it back as we saw them doing, and then we can blow it up from there, which is the plan. So it's like a movie plan.
Well, you know what was the detail I liked?
Simon, or
No.
no? No.
No. Somebody pointing out that was what the bad guys in that movie did.
I did like that actually too.
I actually really like that as a detail in terms of like, yeah, no, we're not in a position where we can get moralistic about what works. If it
Mm-hmm.
works, we do it.
I mean, in a smarter show, it'd even be a bigger commentary on how, like, oh yeah, resistance fighters usually are the ones who get vilified in those movies when they generally are. It's much more nuanced than that than a lot of movies would do. I don't think the show is making that commentary directly, but it's certainly interesting.
Nope.
Um, Also, yeah, Simon here is like, I think that's dangerous. He's trying to see the thing like maybe we don't do that, as his him being a double agent would imply. Anyways, they make that plan. We then jump to 8 days after the Cylon attack on the colonies over on Galactica, and we have refugees coming onto the Galactica, and sort of talking about like we're only accepting photos of missing people, so wait if you have confirmed dead. And Cavill is going around handing out flyers, and trying to like have them put up, and it's clearly, as we later see the flyer, a signal to other Cylons of when and where to meet. During this, he does see our reporter six that we saw in one of the episodes that we'll talk more about in a little bit. Or not reporter, scientist six. I forget her name off the top of my head. I wrote it down later when I got it. But he also sees Doral. He also sees, I believe, a Simon as well, the one that was from Geminon with the family, as we'll talk about later. So Cavill sort of gets an idea of who is Cylon within the fleet here.
Yep.
Then we cut to the secret Cylon meeting that's there, and we see a Doral, two sixes, Leoben, and Cavill, and then we also again know that there's a Simon out in the wind. Is there in the wind?
Well, there's assignment in the wind, and another person who they did not get back for this was Lucy Lawless. So we have an acknowledgement that's like, oh, we don't have a. I think she's a three. We don't have a three here, and it'll get covered for later in a throwaway line. But
Yes.
it's on the one hand, it's impressive that they got as many people back as they did, given that everyone was out of contract by this point. But on the other hand, boy, can you tell? Boy, is it really obvious who they couldn't get.
Yeah. It's like Edward James Olmos did not come in for this movie. He's in this thing with a bunch of old footage, but he did not show up for any scenes.
Well, you could tell because of how much darker his hair is. I didn't realize how much he'd kind of grayed and shagged up a little bit over
Yep.
the course of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. But yes, they have this meeting, and they talk about who's missing here. And basically they talk about like, this is not supposed to. Cavill sort of is complaining, like, the universe is supposed to bask in justice. This was not supposed to happen. We need to take out the Galactica. One of the sixes, who is dressed up in very like sexy gear, which was very funny. She's like, oh, we can all work separately, get weapons, 10,000 enemies apiece. We could do it. Just sort of jokingly. Cavill says, all right, let's get this genocide started. We can try and take out the Galactic by avoiding threats to our detection, be sleeper agents, that sort of thing. So, and he also makes a reference to the fact Cavill does to Boomer. He knows there's an 8 that he can talk to. So
Yes.
We then have the Resistance's first mission, and it goes very, very badly. So, quick version of this is they attempt to blow up the arm, but it kind of goes off badly, so that it gets detected early. There's one of the guys has built like a makeshift bomb out of a pyramid ball, so they're like, oh, it's still open, we can go and throw it in and use this. And one of them sort of grabs the ball and tries to get it through, but she gets killed killed by the Centurion that was downed earlier, and so she gets killed. The guy who throws the ball manages to get it in, gets the thing blown up. But then another person comes running out to try to save the girl who sort of sacrificed herself on the Centurion body, and also gets killed. So this just goes terribly for everybody. So 2 people die in a very mismanaged event, I think is the thing.
I think more than 2 people die
Maybe.
because I think also the coach dies. Because one thing you hadn't mentioned is it is established that there is like the pyramid coach was
Yes.
among the survivors, and that's who Sam had kept turning to whenever
Mm,
there was a question of like, what should we do? He's like, Coach, what do we do? And I'm pretty sure he dies in this because he doesn't show up again after this.
yes.
And Sam's gonna have his whole crisis of being expected to lead.
Yes, exactly. So we have that. Um, then we have Cavill is talking to the different members of the, sleeper cell, whatever you want to call this islands that are on the Galactica. So he talks to the Oban and he says, try and hear their military. You can crack their technology. He also says, like, send in a 6 dealer's choice. Uh, and he then talks to the I'm gonna call her Scientist 6 again. I have her name later on, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But Scientist 6, who he saw, and he basically gives her the plan to sort of discredit Baltar, as we saw in one of the episodes from season 1. He insults her intelligence, though. Is like, oh, very smart. You came up with that plan yourself. Maybe it's the glasses. So yeah, very much being a sexist
You're very
pig.
smart, or maybe it's the glass. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very much
Which
being a
like
sexist pig.
I don't understand like because he had lines like this in the new Caprica stuff too, and I don't.
What would be, they don't even connect it here. What would be interesting, and I wish they had, I mean, it would be an interesting thing to explore, and it's not, and it's surprising considering it even kind of could come up here in the show. But this whole thing that he has that comes up, I was like, we need to be the perfect machines. I wish that we were the perfect machines. And then yet he is still so enamored with aspects of the body, like sex and sexism and looking at women in different ways. And there could be an interesting sort of thing there of like, he's the guy who is, very much like we should, shed any aspect of our humanity, and yet is the one who is most like still enamored with like body stuff in a very sexist way, but they don't
Oh
really
yeah,
make
there's
that
gonna be a very
connection.
weird moment that like it's like what the fuck,
Yeah.
uh,
It would be an
later with
interesting
that.
idea, but they do not explore that. Yeah.
Yeah, which makes it feel like it's something that's there because they didn't think about what the implications of what they were doing, as opposed to something that was done with any kind of intent.
Yeah, which is odd. Especially since it's
No,
like
not really. It's pretty much on par for this fucking show.
yeah, yeah. Anyways, one scene that I do like amongst this when he's talking to everybody is he's talking to a Doral, and he's like, one of the Dorals, one of you got discovered by Dr. Baltar back in the mini series, and I have a problem with you walking around this fleet with that face and that jacket. You're recognizable. And Doral's response is like, well, his jacket was teal, mine's burgundy, which I
No,
did think was a
mine's
good.
teal.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I noted that it was like, and he's defensive about it too. Like, well, his jacket was brown, mine's teal.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny. It was a good bit. Well, Cavill says, I have something else for you to wear. This is a suicide bomb vest, which I think undersells all the homicide that goes along with it. Which is a very dark humor line. And so yeah, it was Cavill who gave this Doral the idea to do a suicide bomb vest. And we sort of later
Thing.
on we'll get the moment where that happens. We get the sort of footage from the series itself where that happened. So we
Yep.
have that. Um, we then have a quick scene, which again is Andrew's crisis of, self, where he runs off into the woods saying, he wants to run away. And I forget her name, but the sort of second in command, the girl that he sort of has a connection with on the team, she sort of stops him. And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Even the robots take their dead. But she manages to talk him back into coming. So he has that sort of like doubt in himself, as we get to see. We have a quick little scene where Leoben cracks the code, the military code, and is able to listen in to the Viper pilots talking. And of course, he becomes obsessed with Starbuck. So we sort of see that.
Yeah, this the start of his Starbucks stalking.
Yeah.
Um, Which also means this is one more thing that had no premeditation. It was just an obsession he developed over the course of this. Like, here's the thing. Like, and it's kind of belied by the title being the plan.
Hmm.
But it was a little bit after this, I think. It was about halfway through that I realized, oh, you know what hits really wrong about this? It is the inverse of a trope that I normally like. So
Hmm.
something that I like, and sort of my one of my go-to examples was the Penguin show that was on HBO Max. Because what I love in something like that is from the outside to the people that he's dealing with, it looks like Oz has a plan and like is on top of everything. But we as the viewers get to see how madly he's scrambling to keep his head above water. But like whenever he's around other people, he's just all held together and they're just seeing the results of his moves and he's lucking out often enough that it looks like he's got it together and he doesn't. I love stuff like that. I love seeing like, oh, you're suave, and then like seeing the behind the scenes of what a fucking scramble it was. This is the opposite of that because this is a case where there was a bunch of stuff that it didn't necessarily look like chaos, but it was those one of those kinds of things like, what the hell's the plan? Because this doesn't make sense. There must be like something real specific or elaborate that they're doing for these pieces to fit. But the answer just ends up being no, it's barely controlled chaos. I'm like, oh, that's what it looked like, but I assumed it was something else because that's
They
not
told us, yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, barely controlled chaos that looks like barely controlled chaos when it's the people who are supposed to be the threat. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Anyways, the we do have a quick little bit where there's a kid sleeping in Cavill's chapel and he sort of kicks him out. One thing I'll note, I'm just surprised they didn't. I mean, I guess the kid's too old now, but I wish they had made it boxy. It would have been a nice tie to that. So,
I mean, like part of like I think if I remember correctly, Boxy is a confirmed orphan
yes,
when we saw him.
yeah.
So like yeah, they do have a detail about this kid. We're like, well, it can't be him. I'm surprised they didn't at least leave it ambiguous enough where it could have been assumed that maybe this was,
Yeah,
even
again,
if
in
they
your
didn't
movie
say
that was
it.
about answering questions, you could have tied off that plot hole. I guess not plot hole, but like dangling thread that never got
Yeah.
like sort of covered up,
And
and
like
they
you
don't.
again, you didn't even necessarily have to do it explicitly, but there's gonna be a line later that means that this can't be Boxy.
Yes, so it's odd.
Which is like, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing?
You can't even tie all your plot threads up in your movie without
Ugh.
tying plot threads up. It's odd. Um. Anyways, we then see the chief meets a new engineer, a new knuckle dragger, as he said, Lieutenant Chiana, I think is her name. But yeah, she's
I just wrote in my notes substitute Callie.
yes, basically.
Because virtually everything she does, with one exception, because this is gonna turn out to be Simon's wife, the Simon who we saw with the family. If not for that one detail, literally everything she does probably should have been Callie.
Yes, yes. Yeah, but yeah, here, she has a moment with the chief where, he's like, "Oh, I need to swap out these oxygen cylinders and if I found them in this condition, they'd be bad." So chief's like, "Oh, grab the spares." There are no spares. And he's like, "Welcome to the Galactica." But then she also
Which is nice. I like that line.
it was a good bit. But then Boomer comes in and it's very clear that she and the chief have a thing going on and Shiana clocks it. And she's like, "Oh, office romances. I have a similar sort of thing. My husband and I, we have our own obstacles. They're different, but there's always something. And so we get a reference to that as well, and sort of connects with the chief about that. We then have a quick little scene where we see Boomer goes into her bunk bed area and she sees a little elephant on her pillow. And we learn that this is essentially later that this is her kind of activation to sort of pull her out of her her sleeper agent mode, so she's like full back to Cylon self.
Like when she's holding this thing, she remembers what she is.
Yes. And we get a little flashback here that I found interesting where Boomer is, before she got her memory erased to become Boomer, is talking to a Six, and Boomer basically says, I feel like I'm going to wake up and I'm going to die. And if Six says, yeah, you're going to have a whole new life. You'll be sharing Valeria. It is kind of like you're dying. Because it kind of goes to the whole thing about memory that we talked about earlier. But then we have Boomer talking to Cavill with the elephant there. And she basically gives him the idea of like, oh, what if I blow up the water? They need the water. It's a good thing that I can do, and I can blow that up. But then she also notes to Cavill that it's my cover is very strong. Chief Tyrrell loves me. And Cavill notes that's an interesting human to choose amongst all the humans. And he says, get explosive and have a fatal accident, basically to say blow yourself up while destroying the
Yep.
water. So, yep, which sort of sets off that plan, as we sort of see later on. Over on one of the other ships, the Siri, I think it's called. I forgot to clock it. But this is, again, Simon, and we learn that Simon is dating Chiana, the engineer. So yeah, this is his family. She's the one that he's married to, and they run
Yeah,
into.
she has a kid from a previous marriage.
Mm-hmm. And Cavill shows up as they're eating dinner, and Cavill sort of plays it as like, "Oh yeah, I'm a childhood. I knew your husband since he was a child, and I was his childhood priest." And Chiana sort of mentions like, "Oh yeah, I've never met anyone from your childhood, and this is my child from my first marriage. I never, I'm glad to meet you. Stop by sometime." And Cavill sort of like threatens him codedly, saying, I know where you live. We should meet up. So yeah, basically threatens
I
Simon if he doesn't show up.
Yeah, I do like how playfully he does it though. It's like you should stop by and see me sometime. And if you don't, remember, I know where you live. And it's played in this little jokey moment, but it's like that's nicely menacing. Well done.
Yeah.
Good job.
Mm-hmm. Back on Caprica, we see Anders and the Resistance spot some Dorals shoving human corpses into a pile. And the Dorals are kind of complaining like, oh, the Centurion should be doing this. But this is also when Anders and the crew spot that Cylons look like humans now, because there's multiple
Yeah, because there's like three or four identical people
Dorals.
all standing around talking to each other.
Yep. And so yeah, they get out of here, but they realize that. We
I actually
then
really like the reaction from the woman who's with Sam. Like it's the horror of this like really hits her and she plays it very well.
mm-hmm.
Because
We then
like they're hiding, so she has to like immediately slap her hand across her mouth to stop from just
gasping.
breaking down.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have a scene between Cavill and Boomer, and this is Boomer is wet from having placed the charges in the water tank. And she's sort of explaining to Cavill is like, I'm not sure if we should detonate the charges. There's so few humans, they're not a threat. And Cavill says they are a threat because of the power they have to make you do this, to like question everything. Of all the Cylons, you should be the one to see that. But obviously Boomer's still sort of like not kind of unsure. But then there's a gross moment where Cavill says, you really should get out of those wet clothes. And she doesn't. He says, all right, fine, be a prude or whatever. And then he takes the elephant from her, leaving her there. And she wakes up, like basically goes back into her sleeper agent Boomer identity. And that's where we saw her at the start of the episode Water way back in season 1. So this is her
Yep.
waking up in that room. So, yep. Again, narrative plot hole filling. We
Narrative
then
plot hole filling and perving on a woman. How original.
Whee! Yep.
We've never seen this show do that before. It's not like they're gonna do it again in this same fucking.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep. We have some quick scenes from the show itself where Tyrrell and Boomer are talking about, like, Tyrrell's like, oh, someone put you up to do it. You're not really a Cylon, and then the water explodes. So we get all of that. Then we have Anders attacks the Dorals that were throwing out the human bodies, and they sort of do an attack on this and stop the Dorals from doing it. But Cavill was also there. We'll call him Caprica Cavill, so the separate Cavill from the one on Galactica. And he pretends to be a survivor who is amongst the bodies, and Anders and folks rescue him. So
Yep.
they think he is human. We get the sequence from the show itself where Doral does the suicide bombing, so that occurs here. We also have a quick little moment where Leoben is getting hunted by some officers, and he manages to escape getting caught because he hides. Because again, Leoben was one of the Cylons that they knew who he was from the miniseries, because Adama outed him way back then, so that's how they know. We then cut
And
to
he's still listening to Starbuck, just being a fucking stalker.
Yep, that happens a few times, as I'll note later. We then have a sequence where Caprica Cavill is with Anders, and they're sort of riding back to where the Resistance is based. And Caprica Cavill is talking to Anders about maybe this was a punishment for man's sins. And Anders is sort of talking about them, and Cavill says, I don't believe it's a punishment from the gods. Perhaps the Cylons have assumed the role the gods once had. They're certainly smiting us pretty well, and we certainly have abundance of sins to judge. And sort of Andrew sort of takes this in by the end, and he asks Cavill, do you take confessions? And Cavill says, of course I can. And Andrew says, good, we'll talk later. And clearly there's something on Andrew's mind. And then Cavill also sees the Simon that is with the resistance cell. So they hook up. All right. Speaking of Simon, we have the Simon on the Galactica, and he's meeting with Galactica Cavill. And Galactica Cavill is sort of chastising this Galactica Simon, saying you're late. And Simon saying it's hard to get away. This is where we get the offhanded reference of like, oh, I found a 3 with a similar problem. I let her pursue that.
Which is accounting for Deanna.
Yeah, exactly. But then obviously Cavill, after a moment, sort of like calls Simon out. Is like, you're married to one of them. We can't have peace with these until all of these cockroaches are gone. And yeah, basically, in Simon also calls him out as like, oh, you're improving. And Cavill says, yeah, we're surrounded by humans that are not supposed to be alive. And he says, come back tomorrow. Maybe I'll have you blow up the ship you live on. To Simon. Mm-hmm. So Simon is being pressured to be part of the resistance, or not the resistance, the sleeper cell. The sleeper cell. So many groups here. The sleeper cell that Galactic Cavill wants them to be involved in. We then get the sequence with Shelley Gottfried is her name. So this is the 6 who was pretending to be the scientist who tried to discredit Baltar in that one episode. Yeah, Shelley Gottfried. So we get those scenes from the episode, including the like No More Mr. Nice Guy scene as well from that episode. And we clearly see in that Shelley Gottfried is upset at doing this because she still has feelings for Baltar is the implication. Even though this is not the same 6. But all 6s want to fuck Baltar. All 6s want to fuck Baltar, apparently. Yeah.
Dear God. God damn it, man.
Yep.
And also, like, God, they were able to get her, like, again, it is not in the show's interest to try and plug these old holes because it's making me realize how much shit now doesn't make sense even more than because, like, in the early stuff, first season especially, I just went in going, well, I'm sure there's a reason. Because I can't remember.
I'm sure there's a plan. I'm sure there's a plan.
I can't remember if I asked or not, why that 6 who is trying to smear Baltar, like, yeah, I see the value in smearing Baltar, but also she's able to get onto the CIC. Adama's right there. Like, what? Why isn't she doing more? Why didn't they give her a fucking bomb and have her just blow up the CIC? She was able to get right there. And I assume, well, like, there must be a reason why they aren't doing. No, there's no reason why they aren't doing that. And you're drawing my attention to the fact that there's just no fucking plan.
Mm-hmm. We get a quick little moment where Leoben is listening to more Starbuck recordings, and he paints the maelstrom that she sees as well. So growing obsession thing there. Boomer finds Cylon written on her mirror, which was from the actual series itself, and then she goes to talk to Cavill about it, and she says, I think it was me who wrote Cylon on the mirror. I'm trying to warn myself or trying to talk myself out of it. I'm not really sure. Um, and she says, I don't want to kill, Galen or anyone like that. And Cavill says, here's your father. And it seems like he's about to be talking about, like, oh, he is literally your father as one of the final five. But he says, all mankind is your father. They have sins that they deserve to die for. And
Well, no,
Boomer
he
says,
very specifically said they made us, and for that sin they deserve to die, which is a line that would be fascinating to examine, but the show doesn't.
yes, it does not.
Like that is a theoretically fascinating line for him to say the sin for which they should die is making us.
Mm-hmm.
Does not explore that at all,
No.
but it's a fascinating line that begs for exploration that we will not get.
Instead, what we will get is Boomer saying, I'm happier when I'm under, I'm happier when I'm human, I like myself, I love myself then. And Cavill says, never say that, never, 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 because if that were true, they win. And they can't. Look at me, they know your lies. I know you can do this, you can kill Adama for me. And then he kisses her.
He even has like one really good line leading up to this. He says, "They know your lies, I know you," which is a
Mm-hmm.
real good line to someone who is living a double life situation. But yeah, then they haven't fucking kissed.
Yeah.
God
Drink.
damn it! Fuck this show, man. Jesus.
Yep. Well, we have Leoben talking to Cavill. They sort of like have a on the down low meeting. And he's sort of talking about his obsession with Starbucks. She has a destiny. But Cavill's like, whatever, I don't give a shit, but you've
I,
got a
I I
problem.
keep forgetting that that's a thing we don't have answers on either. I keep forgetting because I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Well, Cavill says you've got a problem, and Leoben sort of gets caught by some guards as Cavill hides. So this is
I actually kind of like that moment because he literally just looks down the corner and he goes like, "Well, you got a problem." And he just casually slides in among boxes while Leoben has to go, "Oh shit!" and just bolt.
yeah, it was really good.
There's something about the casually Weasley villain, the kind to be talking to someone and be like, "Oh, well, you should run because here come the cops," and then they just duck out. I don't know.
yeah.
I just like that dynamic with these
Yeah,
kinds of characters.
it's kind of fun. Yeah, I like that as well. It's like, yeah, you're fucked. Well, see ya. Bye. I like that. Um, yes. We then cut to Caprica Cavill, and he's talking to Simon, and they're sort of discussing. It's like, oh well, you're just not doing too much here. You're just giving too much people too much morpha every once in a while and killing them that way. It's not really doing a lot. And Simon sort of questions Caprica Cavill's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I promised to hear Anders' confession, and we keep our promises. So that's his only
Well, Simon
explanation.
even calls him out more specifically. Like you said, you could call down an airstrike on here. Why haven't you done that already? So it's
Mm,
not just like a vague, well, I'm doing this. What are you doing? He's like, no, you could do something very specific. I know you could. What the
mm-hmm.
hell?
Yeah, and he is not. Um, we then get a quick explanation as if we fucking needed this one, but we get an explanation for how Shelley Godfrey got so far ahead of the guards who were chasing her in the hallway in that episode of like how did she get
Who
around the corner?
fucking care? I didn't even remember that happened.
Yeah, but it definitely happened, and we get an explanation because Cavill swapped the sixes around by putting one of the sixes in a wig and having her run ahead while he grabbed Shelley Godfrey's six. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because also randomly we have like one of the darker haired sixes along with the Shelley Godfrey bleach blonde six, and so God, this says that I didn't even assume that
I
was a
just thought
plot
she
hole. I
ran. Yeah.
Yeah, I just assumed when she was out of their visible range, she ran faster than they expected she could because she's a fucking machine. What?
yeah. Yeah.
This this is what happens when the creative teams pay too much attention to the conversations going on in fan forums.
Yeah.
Here's like, look, it's a really hard balance to figure out how much of, the fandom's reaction to what you put out there you should engage with. There are some who will tell you to ignore it completely, and I'm going to say there's some value in that. I think ideally there's a balance where like the general sense of how your stuff's being received, but you're not looking into the specifics.
Hmm.
Because the instant you start looking at the specifics, you feel a need to respond to them. And the instant you are making something that is responding to fan bullshit more than it is telling a story, you then you're fucked.
Yeah, it reminds me of Gossip Girl, where the fans figured out who Gossip Girl was, like well before, because there was clues, like clear clues of like this is the person who is doing all of this is. Like here's the answer, and fans figured it out, and so the creator at the end of the series literally went, "Okay, it's now a completely different character," and there was no build up to it. It pissed everyone off and made no sense, just because he wanted to surprise the fans rather than paying off what he had deliberately built the entire
Oh yeah,
series.
that shit has been happening for ages. That happened in the freaking 90s with the DC event comic. I think God, I forget which one it was. But like there was this villain monarch who had this whole build up, to the reveal of who he was going to be, and who it was going to be leaked. And so they changed it, but because the earlier issues were already out, all the foreshadowing pointed to something else.
Yeah,
And
it's
and they actually ended up picking one of the few people who it was literally impossible for it to be.
Yeah. And it's so short-sighted too, because it's like number one, most people are not on the forums and not going to know. So like, yeah, a certain segment of fans will be like, "Oh, I knew it the whole time," and they should feel rewarded because they were fans and paid a fucking attention. Or just like learn the leak, which sucks if it's a leak, but like it's like pay off the fans who paid attention. Other people will find it to be like, "Oh, this is a great, satisfying story that you have told me because you had it planned." But no, whatever. We'll do
Yeah.
bullshit like this.
But like this moment with six isn't even that. This just feels like in one random forum, someone else, people are still there's like a few people still wondering about the how'd she get so far ahead. Ooh, we should address that. Why? Fucking why?
Yeah.
Like I cannot imagine that was on anybody's radar in the writing team as
Hmm.
something to address. That just strikes me purely as somebody found a list in a fan forum of unanswered questions and saw that on there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we get a couple shots from the miniseries of like Adama warning, like she was just here. What happened to her? How do we get there? And Baltar also being set free by Gata. When we found out that it was all a fake, the faked evidence. But then Cavill takes Godfried Six into a bathroom, so we get more shots of like, look at these naked people, huh? Look at the boobs.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
note was just we nudity because we can.
Yeah. But he's just like, oh yeah, you made a guilty man look guilty. Are you attracted to this human? And Godfrey Six is like, I was so brutal with him, and Cap was like, you should have, you could have sent him through a wall if you wanted to, if you had really pushed him. Oh look, an airlock, how handy. And he basically asks this Six to airlock herself. So,
Yeah.
yep,
And
that's where
like
she went.
it's God, it just this whole thing demystifies the Cylons so much
Mm-hmm.
because like beyond just me assuming that there was a grander scheme and a grander purpose, and there wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like the shit that they're doing isn't even going according to plan. What
No.
what little improvised plan they have. And here's the thing. It's not even necessarily with what they're ultimately doing with the Cylons, it's not even necessarily a problem to demystify them in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Because the show is taking the position that they are just people. And yes, people are messy, so this is messy. Fine. Except, again, what I keep coming back to, they shouldn't be just people because they're way more interesting if they aren't thinking and scrambling and getting pissed at each other for doing stuff wrong like people do. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not even necessarily a flaw of this movie. It's consistent with how the show has ultimately ended up. I'm just still bitter that the show thinks the Cylons are more interesting if they're just people because the show's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Well, we get a few sequences from the show proper, so like the Starbuck and Leoben stuff, all leading to Leoben being sent into space and the sort of interrogation that they had. The moment where Boomer tries to die by suicide and shoots herself in the cheek, and then also the moment a few episodes later where Adama asks Boomer to be a pilot to nuke the Cylon base star. So all of that sort of comes up here. We also get a quick little scene between Cavill and the orphan, and this is the scene that we alluded to earlier, where the orphan's sort of hiding out in his chapel, and Cavill sort of asks him, "Are you a war orphan? So you do have parents? Do they want you?" And the orphan, and the kid says, who's not orphan, he says
Yeah.
no, and Cavill sort of says,
Which is
"Well,
why it can't be Boxy because he
he
does say
was an
he
orphan."
has parents, they just don't want him, which like it's a very sad line and like it's almost kind of a poignant line, but it does eliminate the possibility that this is meant to be Boxy.
Yes, I think what it's trying to do, I guess now that I think about it, I guess the trying to do is like Cavill's connecting to this kid of like parents who like he feels didn't want him. I think is the connection they're
Yeah,
trying to
like
make.
I get what they're doing,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, he tells them to go down to the room where there's people in charge of finding children, but then he's like, go somewhere at least, like get out of here, and the kid leaves. Um,
Yeah.
we then cut to Galactic assignment. He is waiting for his wife to come home, and she does. And he sort of starts complaining about why were you out all night? What's going on? And he basically says, we should be living our lives, not working all the time. And, what was the point of surviving all of this if we weren't living our lives? And you very clearly get the sense of like he wants to make every moment count, considering he doesn't think he's going to have any more moments left because of everything going on with Cavill. But the mechanic, Chiana, she basically says like, "Hey, I'm trying to do everything I can. Everyone's putting in all the effort in doing anything they can to try and help." Um, and then their daughter wakes up, and he tries to force her to dance with him, and she clocks that he's drunk, and so she takes their kid and leaves him behind.
Yeah, he's just being an unstable asshole. So something that I noted actually from like a couple scenes previous where Cavill is with the Six after they've skirted their way past all the naked people because that was so important. And he's like, "Oh, an airlock, how convenient." There's this reaction from Six, which
Mm-hmm.
becomes another thing that I really hate about what this show. And actually, I'm going to label this specifically a problem with the plan. All of the Cylons, other than Cavill, act as if they're afraid to die.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I mean, the
Like,
only
I understand that later on in the show they don't have resurrection anymore. Cool. But again, it's just one more thing to have them be, oh, they're just like people, they're afraid to die. But like it's way more interesting if they're not.
Well, the one explanation that I'll give, I agree with you thematically. The textual explanation is, as we later learn with the Simon, as we'll talk about in a minute, like they don't know if they're within resurrection range or not. That, in fact, that was actually a textual conversation with Leoben and Starbuck in the interrogation episode. He's like, I don't know if we're in
Yes, that's
resurrection
true.
range or not. So like they might be afraid to die because they might literally die, especially as we later learn one of them actually does, Simon, later on in this movie. So. That would be the reasoning. And then also it's just not a nice thing to die, as the show has made clear that like the Cylons still carry the trauma of dying. Even the end of this movie sort of touches upon that too.
Yeah, but I always found that more interesting as something where it's a specific like version who we know has died as opposed to just assuming that they've all died at some point and they all know what it's like. No, it's way more like that was one of the things that was really interesting about that one episode that was on Occupied Caprica in the Cylon controls because like there was a lot of shit in that was uninteresting. Like they're just going to to cafes. What the fuck? But one of the things that was interesting was seeing part of the conflict between Deanna and that version of Six
Which
of
was
Caprica
Caprica 6.
Six,
Yeah.
yeah, was that Deanna, that specific Deanna, it's implied pretty heavily, has not died before
Mm-hmm.
and like doesn't understand what it's like, and that's a specific like dividing point between the two of them. That was really interesting. This isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Well, we get this sequence from the show where Boomer shoots Adama, so we get that. Then we get a scene between Galactica Simon and Galactica Cavill. where they're talking about like, oh, is he dead? Well, I guess the beast is decapitated, assuming Adam is dead at this point. And Galactica Simon says, okay, I'll do it. I'll blow up my ship on one condition: my family is kept safe. And Galactic Caval's like, no, you don't want that condition, because if they die, they'll die never knowing what you really are. So he sort of implies like, yeah, you kill them. If you don't kill them, they'll learn what you are, and that'll ruin their memory of you anyways. So, yep.
Yep.
Um, we then cut to Cavill. Uh, we cut to Cavill. Galactica Cavill is now sleeping with the six that he saved earlier on, not the one that was airlocked. The sex worker one, as the implication is. So of course we get that tie in there. And yeah,
Yep.
this six is basically going through the plan of like, look, a six failed, the two failed, every machine, like everyone's
And
failing you.
they've got her just walking around in her underwear throughout this entire
Of
scene.
course, of
It's
course.
gross, Ron. It's really gross.
Yep. Well, what's even grosser is like Cavill says at one point, every machine needs to warm up. You will be a fleet killing machine. It's just starting to hum. And then the six goes, I'll make you hum. And then obviously reaches down his pants. So again, would
God,
be an interesting idea of like the Cavill that wants to be a machine is the one also most interested in sex. That would be a fascinating thing to explore. But of course we don't. So.
it's so, God damn it, man. This show is so fucking gross about women. Like it's even don't let anyone ever excuse this for you as being of the time. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
This even for the time is gross about the women in it.
Yep. Very much
Like
so.
I remember, and it probably would have been around the same time as this would have come out, everybody getting really fucking pissed at the Star Trek or no, or was it the reboot or was it Into
It
Darkness?
was
Whatever
Into
one
Darkness.
had, it was Into Darkness, just randomly having a woman standing in her underwear for no fucking reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Very much
Like
so.
it's the same shit.
Yep. Yep. Well, we then cut to Boomer and Cavill are talking in like kind of with whispered breath, because she's sort of locked up and he has the elephant between the two of them as they're talking, whispering between the bars, and the sort of supposition here is he's come to take her confession as her priest. Um, but yes, he's sort of complaining. He's like, "You didn't kill him," and she's like, "I shot him twice in the chest. Isn't that enough?" And he's like, "Why not once in the head?" And Boomer sort of talks about, well, the only way I could get this done is if I made myself into a centurion. I could even feel my heartbeat. To which Cavill says, "Well, that sounds wonderful." And then Boomer's like, well, they're human. That's good. They have ideas, And Cavill's like, no, like I need to break a string of failures. And Boomer sort of focused on, I lost the best part of myself when I did that. So this sort of like push and pull between being human and machine. And Cavill sort of envying the need to be a machine. Again, would have been better if they had tied that into like his focus on flesh and his resentment. Like that's it. Sorry, I keep bringing the sex thing up, but just to point it out, like it would be so interesting if he had more. Like he seems to enjoy it. I would have found it fascinating if he enjoys it, but is self-hating about it, and like there was a more healthy discussion of like sex there. But it's more just like, ooh, ogle the fucking women, and there's sex going on the show. It's gross and nasty, as we talked about. But like that would have been the interesting way to go about this, of like some like self-hatred at his own like physical enjoyment at sex. And like that sort of being like this weird repressed thing that sort of lashes out elsewhere in terms of him wanting to be a machine. But again, there's no exploration of that. It's just sex. So,
Yeah.
anyways, he sort of gets frustrated Boomer for this, and so he says goodbye and takes the elephant so she never gets to see it again. And basically says like, the Boomer, having now back in her human identity, says, I didn't ask for a priest, and he says, all right, well, fine, good luck. You don't get to have a confession. So, yep. Walks away
Yep.
from that. Over on Caprica, we get the sequences where Starbuck meets Anders for the first time, and we sort of get the shootout between the two of them. And Simon is getting frustrated at Caprica Cavill, basically being like, "What's the plan here? What are we even doing? Like, these two are supposed to, like, two people are going to shoot each other. Great, who gives a shit? Essentially, it's been 2 months since the bombs fell, and you're helping this resistance cell thrive here. What's the point?" So,
Yep.
sort of an inverse of the Galactica Cavill and Simon's relationship, which is, on some level interesting if it had been a more interesting movie. Um, Anyways, we then have the quick sequence where Callie is shooting Boomer. where Callie shoots Boomer in the hallway from the show, and Cavill hears it a few doors down. Didn't you want to know that Cavill is just a few doors down from that scene the whole time? Aren't you glad this
Yeah,
movie explained
wow,
that?
that changes everything.
Yep. Uh, Galactica Simon, we have cross cuts between him having sex with his wife, because of course, as he.
At this point, my note was just fucking grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it's not just these completely point like shots of him thinking of his wife. Okay. Like that's why he's doing what he's about to do. So intercutting it with memories of his wife, but it's just them fucking, and it is the most explicit sex scene this show has ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Like full on bouncing on him, moaning, like what the grow up.
Yeah,
Grow
it's
the fuck up, man.
exploitative and gross. Um,
Fucking straight men can't run shows anymore. Straight cis white men specifically. We'll narrow it down. You're not allowed to show run anymore.
you can write
You're
episodes,
not.
but no,
You
no shows.
no. You can write episodes, you can direct episodes. You don't get to run shows anymore. The whole lot of you, you're all on
I
notice.
would go far enough to
Fuck.
say as like, look, you can't be leaders, you can't be presidents. Just step aside. You can take part. We'd love to have you take part, but you're not allowed to be leaders anymore. I think the world
Yeah.
just all take about like 100-year break, and we'll check back in and we'll see how things are going.
Uh,
uh,
there was this great bit. Do you know who Henry Rollins is?
no, not off the top of my head.
He was kind of a punk kind of a guy. He's also done some acting. Well, have you seen Johnny Mnemonic at least?
Oh yeah, God, yes, of course.
Okay. He was Spider in Johnny
Oh, okay,
Mnemonic.
okay, yeah.
So he had this special that he did, and he has this wonderful stretch that I will sometimes watch him just do this bit. Um, and he says like, okay, for however long we've had civilization, we've only done it one way, which is that men are in charge. And I think we should try and do it another way. I think we should invert the power balance and it should be 75% women, 25% men. But I am an impatient guy and I want everything right now. So I want a 75-25 power balance and I want it Monday. So, how do we get that by Monday? Not peacefully. And this is where I get in trouble because a lot of men are gonna have to die. But like he also makes the point like, look, women will probably be monsters if you let them have power for long enough too, but it'll probably also be different. And won't it be interesting just to see what the differences are if nothing else?
Yeah. Well, it's a funny bit. Well, we go back in here. Galactic assignment, like I said, sex, but he is also setting up a bomb. Basically, he blows up. You seem to think he's blowing up the ship, but he's not. He's basically killing himself by blowing out an airlock.
Yeah,
Uh,
he just spaces himself. And this
yes.
like they have this one shot of his frozen body, which first of all, stop doing that. Your body does not insta freeze in space.
Mhm.
Stop doing that.
Yeah.
um but like also it's really weird because like there's the shot you see him go out and then it's like this hard cut to his already fully frozen face. It's actually really jarring because the
Hmm.
edit does not flow very
No.
well at all. It's
No.
weird.
Yeah. Well, we then jump to Cavill having sex with Six again, and this Six is basically giving him a progress report. It's like, oh, Doro blew himself up, causing minor damage to a hallway. Boomer blew up the water and then found more water, then shot Adama but couldn't even do it accurately. Leoben was obsessed with Starbucks, and the other Six failed to discredit Baltar because of his dreamy hair. And then Simon killed himself, like really killed himself because they were out of resurrection range, because he couldn't imagine life without his human wife. What's the X factor? Why are they all letting you down? And the implication is it's love. It's all love for humans. That is the X factor here. And she says you can't declare war on love. And Cavill says, I think I already did. So love is what makes us human, Vera. Good old love, and especially male gazy love. That's what makes
That
us
is the
humans.
most human of all.
The male gaze. That's what makes us human.
I
Eh.
hate this show. I really do.
I
I
know you
really
do.
hate it.
I don't disagree. I know. Uh, we're just going over the hot coals to get to the end here. Just 5 more episodes in a movie after this. I swear, we're almost there. We're almost there. We'll get there, Vera. I swear. Uh, this is
You
my
owe me. I don't
masochism.
know what you owe me, but you fucking owe me something.
I'll figure it
God
out.
damn.
I'll figure it out. We have a little moment here.
I'm picking the next show. And more to the point, I'm picking the next show and you get no input.
Uh,
I'm not gonna ask you, oh, do you think you want to do it? I'm just picking it and you fucking deal with it.
all right, fair enough. I was just gonna suggest Lex, but we'll see.
No, no, no. I get to pick the next one.
Fair
I
enough.
will pick and you will cope. The only question I will ever have for you is if I suggest something is have you already seen this? That's the
Okay.
only relevant question. That's the only input you'll get.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll discuss that when we get there. Anyways, um, we then have a quick little scene between Chief Ty and what was her name? The Simon's wife. I forget her name. Shiana. And yeah, so basically Ty is sort of interrogating her with the chief there, and she sort of pushes back like, my husband wasn't a Cylon. You think that he was because he knew how to bring an airlock, but there's multiple reasons he could have known that. But someone would say he was, trying to murder people, but he left a note, and the note says, "Love outlasts death." And Ty sort of seems rightfully chastised that this is, we really just wanted some answers. And she says, "Yes, of course, sir. May I have that back?" As a single tear rolls down her cheek. So, yeah,
Oh.
Simon really loved her. Um, then back on Caprica, we have basically this is Simon and Cavill are hanging out, and they overhear Anders and Starbuck having sex from back in season 2 because they're apparently right underneath him.
Mhm.
And they're talking about, like, why did Cavill sort of saying, why does he love her, and Simon sort of teasing him is like, oh, he loves her, and Cavill
Well, okay, no, back up because this drove me up the fucking wall. Because Cavill doesn't ask why does he love her. He asks why is he doing that, meaning having sex with her. Cavill, Cavill is confused as to why somebody is having sex.
to be fair, I'll give it at least a little bit of this. This Cavill seems to be fairly chaste, and presumably this is as we sort of get at the end of this movie, we never see this Cavill again in the series proper. So, like, apparently this Cavill is not as sex forward as the other Cavill, presumably. So that would be my explanation for that. Like,
It's
based on what we learned at the end of this movie, like, this Cavill never gets seen again and gets boxed. And yeah, it has a different trajectory.
the thing is though, I still don't buy that. I don't buy that to the point of him asking the question why. Like, even if I buy the idea that he's chased, I'm like, okay, but the Cavill that we've seen fucking his way through the entire goddamn Cylon line, um, he is not unique among Cavills. That's the default. That's what they're like. So even if this specific model hasn't been doing a lot of fucking, he's working off the same base understanding that the one who is fucking does. So while I can buy he is choosing to live a chaster life, I don't buy him being confused as to why.
Yeah. Well, his thing is, like, she's beneath him, and this is where Simon teases, like, not necessarily. But anyways, this Cavill says, well, don't you
Which,
Simon's
which again, also his statement, she's beneath him, like, is a very weird thing for him to say to a guy who doesn't know that Sam is a Cylon.
Well, he even calls that out too. He's like, why are you so obsessed with this guy? He even asks.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sort of says, like, Scavel says, don't you Simons have a ranch? No, a farm. And so they have the whole sequence where Starbuck gets shot and taken to the farm, and we get that whole thing where, Simon Anders rescues her and all of that jazz, and Simon and Cavill are playing chess, and this is where he says, like,
Oh,
why is
no. You got to skip over the 80 yard in line over the existing footage.
no, what was it?
Okay, so they reuse the footage of Starbuck being rescued from the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a Simon that gets killed, and then they ADR in a line that says, "When we get back, shoot the doc. He's a Cylon."
Yeah, yeah.
Because they have to cover for the fact that they've now seen the same guy who's back in their camp. But obviously, that line wasn't in there before because the one in their camp did not exist prior to this movie
Yeah.
as a thing. So just this ADR'd in line to
Kill
cover
him!
for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, make sure to do that. Yeah. Thanks,
Oh, when we
Bob.
get back, kill him.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways,
Jesus Christ.
yeah,
Two
anyways.
2 hours plugging holes, and that's the best you fucking got.
Yeah. Like
Ah.
talking this through, it's like there's so much frustration here because there is interesting ways I feel like they could have taken some of this and they just don't take any of it and it just becomes again plot hole filling rather than like
Yeah,
a
they're
cohesive
more
arc.
interested in trying to plug what they think are plot holes than actually taking the opportunity to explore anything.
Yeah, I feel like they more like there's some interesting bones here to explore with these two divergent Cavils.
Oh
Um
yeah, that's why I said at the start they are the most interesting thing going on here. But like that's kind of almost coincidental. Like
mhm.
they just happen to be the most interesting thing. You
They
could
are vehicles
argue
they
it's mostly you could argue it's mostly about them, but like structure and thematics and as a through line, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, like it feels like they just happen to be the vehicle to service the plot hole filling rather than the plot hole filling just becoming an aspect of what just naturally happens from exploring these two characters, which is what it should have been, but it's
Yes,
not.
absolutely.
The
Yeah.
priorities were all the way fucking off. Um, anywho, uh, yeah, so all that happens, and Anders goes and saves her, and all of that jazz. We then on Galactica Cavil sees the orphan, not the orphan, the not orphan, not Boxy is what I'll call him. Again, not Boxy again, and invites him in and feeds him. So they start becoming friends. Then we go back to the camp with Anders, and he's talking to Cavil, and sort of Cavil comes up to him and says, "Oh, I've been up all night and can't sleep anymore." And Andrew says, if you're looking for a strong leader, you pick a bad time. And then Cavil sort of offers some confession, and Anders sort of confesses they wanted to give me all this responsibility, and I didn't want it. I wanted to leave. And one time I tried this thing. It was this stupid idea I took from a movie, and people died, and I wanted out. And Cavil says, well, you came back. It's like, no, well, Barley wasn't going to see me doing that. So now I found myself worrying about my own reputation, which is why I didn't run. So I'm a coward. And Cavill says, I suppose you were, but how about now? And he says, I'm not going to run anymore. Maybe I'm stronger. And Cavill says, well, maybe your experience has changed you for the better. You are absolved in the example of the gods. But then he starts going off on like, well, given that this Holocaust was a journey of learning for you, given that, can you forgive the Cylons? Because if you can, that's really transcendent. There must have been a purpose. Humanity had so much sin. And Andrew's like, why the hell are you defending them? I'm going to pretend I didn't hear any of that. And he heads out. So,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So I'm slightly I'm slightly confused on again, like I'm confused on what the writers think they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have this and it kind of got hinted at already with Ellen. And it's coming up again here, this sort of obsession with the idea of like the Final Five learning or changing. Um and that we saw because I do think we are meant to assume that the Galactica Cavil is the one who was in the bar with Ellen.
Yes, that's the one that's in the bar with Ellen. It's also
Yeah,
presumably the same Cavill that is in the episode we saw last week that is sort of confronting Ellen when she gets resurrected. So,
yeah, presumably. Because they're all individuals now. Because why use our unique concept? Whatever. That ship fucking sailed. Anyway, my point is like they have this parallel thing going on because the Capricavel is already kind of like softening on humans, and he kind of latches on to the idea, that Sam learned and he kind of changed a bit. And we saw with Galacticavel where like he just got an affirmation right to his face, like I haven't learned a damn thing, and like sort of using that as shorthand for their divergent views on humanity. Except I don't think they've thought this through because on the one hand, we had the scene where in the previous episode where Cavill's confronting Ellen, and he has this whole thing of like, I wondered how being immortal would change you. I didn't think it would be not at all. So like we've had this notion of like changing or not changing, and so but that line from the previous episode that we watched has this implication that he expected them to learn the final five to learn something. And so now you have this the Capra Cavill like latching onto the idea, oh, you have learned something. I'm like, but you thought they would. That was part of why you did this. You thought they would learn and come around to your way of thinking. So, but also, this doesn't tell you shit because this is a completely new person for all intents and purposes. This isn't even the same guy. And it's kind of like what I complained about with Ellen in the scene in the bar, where like her saying she hasn't learned anything has no bearing on the Cylon version of her. That's just the human version of her talking. But if it's becoming a matter of like, oh, I'm using you to figure out that, oh, maybe humans can learn, but also he's not human. I understand that functionally Sam is closer to a human than a Cylon, but he's also not really a human. So this Cavill's going to use Sam like quote unquote learning and improving as like a shorthand for him having more faith in humanity, but the dude's not a fucking human. God.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a surface level version of this that works, and then you drill down at all, and it fucking collapses in on itself.
Yeah, because Cavill has a line here where he's like, as long as any humans exist, there's no room for us. He says it to Simon. I got the order confused, but it's because this Simon's still around for a scene more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that sort of idea. I was like, okay, that's. I mean, it goes into that idea of like, oh, revenge. Revenge is just we want to destroy everybody instead of trying to build something new, which is again how a lot of like resistance movements are coded of like people fighting their oppressors. They just want to kill us all. And Cavill is shown to be the bad version of that, where like the Cylons who learn to forgive their former oppressors are the good ones. Yeah. Yeah, but it's like so explored in such surface level detail and confusingly thematically woven. It's odd.
God, I'm just gonna take a second and just remember how good it was in Babylon 5 and how far the show went out of its way when it had Jakar forgive Londo, that it made it explicitly clear, I do not speak for my people. My people do not forgive your people, but I forgive you. Like how much that show understood the nature of resistance and oppression and like will people hold on to that as a form of anger and hatred? Yes, but it doesn't taint them. It doesn't make them bad. It becomes a thing they have to deal with. And it's just, oh, there was so much amazing insight in that show, and now I'm fucking stuck with this. God damn it.
Hey, at
I'm
least I
like,
gave
I
you a
I
show
don't
that you did like. I gave you a good one, all right?
you did. I don't think you realize how badly you cooked this show's goose
By
by
doing Babylon
by
5
having me
first.
watch Babylon 5 first.
It's fine. It's all right.
Oh,
Well, Cavill, we see the quick scene from the miniseries where Cavill gives confession to the chief because Chief is sort of wondering if he's human. Then we cut to a scene that was odd, for multiple levels because it was the chief talking to Chiana the engineer, and she had just learned that Simon was indeed a Cylon. He's like, maybe he did love me. I don't know. And she says, if I learned that I was a Cylon, I would have, I kill myself with style. And so she gives Chief the idea of the visions to kill himself that he got in the show, which is again like why did I need this explanation of where he got his idea to kill himself from?
yeah. And
Yeah,
like the one interesting thing is that off the back of her like
yeah,
talking about Simon is the chief also has this moment of like Boomer's a better shot than that.
yes, she
Like
fucked
there
up on
there was
purpose.
no reason why she shouldn't have killed Adama when she shot him. Like that's the one interesting moment and beat. And again, like not that it's new to us as the audience, but it's interesting to see that moment hit him.
Yes, yeah. We also get a moment at the end of this where he reaches over and then kisses her, and then immediately
Of
goes, I didn't mean anything by it. So then I just went, then why did it happen? Other than we just want guys to fucking always kiss fucking women for fucking reason. But it's like, if it meant nothing to him, why did it occur in the fucking scene? What was the point?
Because Jesse, you don't understand. Man and woman in scene must kiss is rule.
Well, thank you, Ronald D. Moore, the caveman.
It's like a
Uh,
law of fucking gravity. Jesus. Like that
Man, woman
the
must kiss. Ugh.
two bodies will always be attracted towards each other.
A penis and vagina must be, magnetically linked or fucking something. Because, yeah, it's not
Fucking
two
magnets.
bodies.
How do
That
they
would be it.
work?
If they just had everybody fucking in this show, I'd find that more interesting. But it's always the
See,
guys
that
kissing
would
the
be
girls.
one thing because that would be, again, it would mean that the show isn't just America in space. Because, like, yeah, if we just shed all the inhibitions about sex and just have this be a society where it's like, yeah, fucking is not a big deal. It's just a slightly more private way of saying hello. Fine, but it's not that.
Yeah, yeah. No, no.
Like that's the thing. Nobody call me a prude.
The problem with it is it's so male fucking gazy and so heteronormative. It's like guy must kiss girl, girl always falls in love with guy and is head over heels for him because he's in love, with a W.
Yeah.
It's just
And
yeah,
the instant a man and a woman are in a room alone and they bond even slightly and kiss.
yeah. And then the spectralization of it is like, oh, we gotta ogle fucking all the boobs, in all the
Tits
fucking
and
girls in
ass, baby,
panties.
tits
Yeah,
and
it's
ass.
that's the problem with the show. The overriding just like aggressive heteronormativity and male gaze of it. So yeah. Anyways, uh, don't know what this note was, so I'll just skip whatever that fucking scene was. Thought crippled your oils. I don't know what that. I don't know what that. No, no, no. I have no idea.
What?
This is just Cavill taking more confession from Galen. That's what the note was. But I don't know what I meant by thought crippled your oils. Don't know what that note was. I'm pretty sure it was a typo. Anyways, we then cut to Anders and Cavill talking, and they're sort of walking through the woods right before Starbuck and Anders met up. And Cavill said, you can lean on me. And basically they're talking about like, why do you go on loving, them talking about humans even when they're dead? And Anders like, what the fuck are you talking, man? Death doesn't change that. When
Well,
they
it's
die.
it's not just like like there's a line, I forget what it was, but there's a this was one of the most interesting moments.
Yes, yes, yes.
The- Not even necessarily for what's written, but because of the way Dean Stockwell plays it. Because Sam has a line, I forget what the exact line was, but it's something about, and we started out with this many, now we have this many, we've lost so many, and I love them. And he's like, well, you love them, they're dead now. He's like, I still love them now. And like there's this moment of it's not even real, it's like a cross between realization and panic. It's like one of those wait, say that again kind of moments that he's like, well, no, you don't keep loving them after they're already dead. And then just Sam's utter confusion at what he's saying. You're realizing that what's happening in this moment, like the specifics and the writing of it are meh. But what's fascinating about this moment is that it basically hits this particular Cavill like a brick to the face. My base assumptions about people have been wrong. It's
Hmm.
it's that moment of not necessarily everything I ever thought has been wrong, but one of my core underlying base assumptions that I built so much on top of, that's wrong. And this big oh shit moment that he plays really well.
Yeah, and it makes sense for one of the things that are unique about the Cylons in that they don't really care about death because they die easily. It's like, oh, it's a moment that actually works because it's what makes the Cylons different that would cause him to have a different perspective on it. And
Yeah.
changes, yeah. So, wow, a moment that could have worked in a much better show. Yeah. Well, we then have two paralleling sequences where Cavill on Caprica has a chance to shoot Starbuck and chooses not to. He has a moment of sort of mercy. Whereas the Cavill on the Galactica, he is talking to not Boxy, and he says, we're friends, aren't we? Well, friends are dangerous as things, and then he stabs the kid. So it's a sort of paralleling between the two different how these two cavils have differentiated themselves. One has gotten
yeah.
more empathy, one has gotten less. So um, then we have sequences from the show where we see like the silence shooting at Starbuck and Anders on Caprica, but then it's stopping and them sort of wondering like what happened. And then we have Cavill in the night going to meet with A6 in the woods, and sort of asking like why the ceasefire. And she explains there's been a vote, a truce, and Cavill says, "Well, I can deliver the message." And Six is like, "Well, your model voted against it," and said, "Well, I've had new insight, so I'll deliver it." So again, this Cavill is different than the other Cavils. Is sort of the point getting across here. And then we
Yep,
get a
and like I really like the parallel. Here's what I especially like about the parallel of this and the other Cavill is that I think you could probably argue that while the other Cavill is staying more or less in line with the rest of his line, you could argue that they are both now different from the rest of their line. One became basically more militant about what they
mm-hmm.
were already doing, and one became softer. And what I like about that is because elsewhere in the show, or hell, even in this fucking movie, things like how Boomer reacts to stuff and how eights react. And it's basically always going soft and always falling in love. Like it's weirdly homogenized that it's like, oh, and then they behave in ways we don't expect, except they always behave in the exact same way that you quote unquote didn't expect. But like to actually see a proper divergence of not just one, but of two going in literal opposite directions from the same starting point. It like, God, this really could, that could have been something.
Again,
That
yeah,
could
there's
have really been something.
so much of this show is just like this could have been better in a show that wasn't so preoccupied with this fucking male gazy bullshit and limited ideas imagination. Like there's so many good ideas in this show that sort of don't get explored as well as they could, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, like I see why the concepts of this show influenced you heavily.
Yes.
Because
This
the concepts are great. The show is not.
What I will say is this was a great show for little me. Like this show hit me at a point where it was
Oh yeah.
very influential and set me on a path to be the weird little trans that I am today. So I will always love it for that. But yes, coming back to, I'm like, I have outgrown your bullshit. Anyways, is kind of where I'm at now. But we'll get there. We'll cross those coals together, Vera, and then we'll get to Caprica and we'll see how well that memory gets torched to shit as well. Because that show is even almost more directly influential than this one was.
Well, but first we'll have the cleansing experience of late 70s
Mormonism.
cheese.
Yeah, cheesy
Yeah.
Mormonism. Anyways, Space Mormons, we'll get there.
I'll just be happy for a different flavor of bad.
Yeah,
Like
maybe
legitimately,
women will fuck it up just as badly, but it'll be interesting to
I
see the differences.
I am legit looking forward to it.
We'll get
I
there.
think I'm gonna have a ball.
Yeah, well, it'll be a relief. It'll be a relief for sure. Anyways, we get some scenes from the actual show proper again, where we see the Cavil from Caprica arrive on the Galactica and deliver the message, and the two different Cavils in their cells talking about like the occupation of the college was an error, and man can go their separate ways, no harm done, and Adama saying no harm done, that whole bit. So we get that scene, which was a great scene from when we thought the show was good, and then we have the two Cavils are walking down the hallway to their execution, and as they are doing that, they stop for a minute and they look around and they see all of the final five around them without them knowing it, and they're like, not how I imagined it. No, and they sort of like have that bonding moment. It's like, nope, this is not how we imagined it. Seeing our parents here. But then they get into the launch tube, and they're about to go into their execution. They have this little conversation, and they're like, "Yeah, there's a resurrection ship in range, but first we have to, go out into the cold vacuum of space." Resistance Cavil says, "Well, yeah, but there's a 170-foot launch tube in front of us. We might die of our injuries before then," which I thought was a funny little bit. But then I'm just gonna call them Galactica and Caprica because I don't want to keep saying Galactica Cavil over and over again. But Galactica says, "I don't like you," and Cavil said, God, Jesus Christ, Caprica says, I understand that. And Galactica says, you really think that it was a mistake? Caprica says, really, rather intensely, yes. Galactica says your strange ideas will be shouted down, and Caprica says, "Well, yes, like that's how all the strange ideas start. They sort of are strange ideas and they get shouted down. But really, we need to understand we had a big temper tantrum before the cataclysm, and we didn't, and Galactus says we just want to be loved, or says like he's like saying Galactus says we didn't want to be loved, we want to be treated fairly, and Caprica Cavil says no, we just wanted to be held to a bosom by our parents. We thought if the humans were gone, our parents would we thought the humans are gone, they would love us again. But Caprica Cavil says if the humans were gone, our parents would mourn them. Sort of citing back the thing that he learned from Anders. And then Galactica Cavil says, I'm going to see to it when you get back that you get boxed, and then I'm going to wipe out humanity once and for all. And then they have a moment as they look down the tube, but they say the anticipation really is unpleasant. And Caprica Cavil holds out his hand. Galactica Cavil takes it, and they get shot out the launch tubes. As they fall out into space, we hear the "I don't want to be human" speech, the speech that I really loved from the episode that we just watched last week, as they literally feel the dust of the galaxy go over their bodies as we sort of cut to like a nebula or such, sort of matching that, like feeling a supernova flow over me sort of thing.
Good ending moment.
Yeah, it's a good ending scene. And again, I like this conversation divergent moment. I wish it had been better earned. But it's a good sort of conversation between the two of them of like, Caprica Cavil sort of correctly diagnosing their problem of like, we just wanted to be loved by mommy. We had an Oedipus complex and we're trying to work it out. And I think I figured that out. And the other Cavil being like, nope, gonna get more militant and let's kill them all. So, yep. So that is the end of the plan. I think we've kind of said our piece on this for the most part, but final thoughts on the plan.
Fuck off.
Yeah. I think we said our piece.
What a waste of time, money. What a waste. Like you
of
were
Dean
given
Stockwell. Yeah.
You were given a budget and most of the cast and nearly 2 hours of runtime, probably to do almost anything. And this is what you thought was the best use of that time and resources. God damn it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing that hadn't, again, as most of the show, it's like a microcosm of most of the show is that it had some good ideas, even had some good character arcs with its two Stockwells here, but at the end of the day, it just got caught up in fucking male gazy heteronormative bullshit and limited imagination and desire to fucking fill in plot holes rather than to tell a good story.
Yeah.
Yay.
Welcome to the show.
Huzzah! Well, that is our thoughts on the plan, such as they are. But next week we will begin our final 5 episodes of the show. Haha, see what I did there? And so we'll start that next week. But with all that said, Vera, stuff time.
Stuff. You can find my stuff by looking for Council of Geeks. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Most recent video out at the time you hear this should be, because I ended up delaying it, should be the video about how even if AI worked as intended, it will still wreck everything. And so that should be the most recent video out. New videos every Saturday on the main Council of Geeks channel. There are also other benefits to either YouTube membership or Patreon support, including getting access to main channel videos a week early, getting an ad-free version of this podcast, getting ad-free videos of the main channel videos. And a few Patreon exclusive videos, etc. Well, Patreon and YouTube member exclusive videos, etc., etc., etc. You can also find Council of Geeks on Blue Sky if you're bored. I don't think there's much else reason to seek out my socials. I don't really even bother plugging them anymore. There's the Council of Geeks break room. I have been talking about the new season of X-Men 97 and the new episodes of Game Changer. I'll probably be delayed on getting reviews out for the most recent 2 of those because at the time you're hearing this, I will have just barely gotten back from vacation. But those are up there, plus my thoughts on whatever I've watched, read, listened to, or played lately. And that's the geeky stuff. There's also, of course, the spicy stuff.
Spicy.
And for that, you can look
Stuff.
for Vera Wild. Wild is spelled Wilde, and you can find
The
increasingly
disappointment in
spicy
your voice.
comments on YouTube, TikTok.
You can find me at Jesse Gender on YouTube where I do video essay style stuff. The Starfleet Academy video will be out by the time you have heard this. Quite potentially, my video on obsession also might be out as well. I'm trying to get that out as fast as possible. I'm really proud of that one as well. So check out both
Uh,
of those. If not already out, obsession video will be out fairly soon. So be ready to check both of those out. The Ferengi video you'll get when you get it, unless you want to give me money. God damn it! Go pay me money at Patreon. That helps me pay my bills. You get the Ferengi video and a bunch of other stuff there. I'm also on Nebula, which is also where you can find the Ferengi video that has my movie identities, as well as the upcoming show Subliminal that'll be coming out at some point. I actually have my VFX spotting session for that tomorrow, actually. So nearing hopefully the end on that as well. Find me on all the social medias. I also have a channel called Jesse Gender After Dark where I do news, reviews, reactions. I will be reviewing, actually, I think this week, as of when this recording comes out, or fairly shortly thereafter, Star Trek Strange New World Season 4 will be coming out. And I will say this, I have officially seen the first 6 episodes of the show. They're all mostly good. I will say first the premiere episode of the season, because I can say this now. I think the embargo will be over. First episode of the season sucks to high hell, is just as bad as the rest of season 3 fucking was. Absolutely fucking terrible. The rest of the season is varying levels of good. In fact, I will argue there's 2 great ones in there, and I am as shocked as anybody to fucking say that, including the puppet episode. The puppet episode is actually, I thought I was gonna fucking despise that one. Surprisingly better than I thought it was going to be. I have criticisms, but surprisingly better. It's not one of the great ones, but better than I thought it was going to be. It's not a miserable fucking experience as I thought it was going to be. And like I said,
you're gonna fucking make me watch
I
this
know.
season,
Look,
aren't you?
Vera, I legit I reviewed the first episode of the show, and I reviewed the first episode of the show without seeing the rest of them. So you can watch my review of the first episode of the show, and literally I say in that it's like, oh god, watching the season's gonna be like dragging myself over hot fucking coals, isn't it? And then I go through and I'm like, oh, this was actually good. Oh, this one was good. Like varying levels. Like there's one episode that's like, it's okay. But it didn't piss me off like season 3 did. And then there are 2 episodes that I'm like, wow, that was actually impressive. Like not perfect, but pretty good. So I don't know what to tell you. I expected to fucking hate it. So like this is me being just as shocked as anybody. So I will say the first episode of the season though does not do it any favors. It sucks. It's absolute shit. But the rest of the season actually solid. So there you go. Take that for what you will.
All right, so what I'll probably end up doing,
I'm so sorry.
I will probably watch the first 2 episodes and we'll see if it rebounds as well as you're claiming. If it doesn't, if I come away from episode 2 going, this isn't dog shit, but it's not that much better, I'm done.
Okay, fair
I'm
enough.
walking away.
Fair
But
enough. I
yeah,
what I will
fine. If the second episode rebounds well, I'll watch the fucking season.
all right, that's fair. I'm not gonna fight you to watch it because it deserves to not be watched after season 3. But it is as someone who is watching all of Star Trek, I might as we're close enough to the end of this era of Star Trek. I might as well finish it off. I was decently impressed. In fact, I think they were smart about it because the screeners that I get show the production number of the episode, and usually they're just in order. Like this was episode 2 of the season, this is episode 3 of the season. It looks like actually episode 2 was intended to be episode 3, and I think they realized because episode 3 is the one that's like, it's not, it doesn't offend me, but it's like, all right, that was whatever. They moved, that was supposed to be episode 2, and I think they switched them around, realizing that episode 3 was actually pretty solid, and they made it number 2 to be like, all right, guys, just don't worry, it's a good one. We got a good one right up front. Please don't abandon us. I think they intentionally realized that. That would be my guess. That's the only way that production order makes sense, because there's even like some continuity things. I'm like, this doesn't entirely line up, but I think you wanted to make that second episode come earlier instead of having 2 mediocre episodes right in a row. So anyways, yeah, episode 1 terrible, episode 2 great, episode 3 meh, episode 4 solid, episode 5 okay, that was actually pretty good, and then episode 6 really great as well. So that's my general consensus on the season. That's basically what I'll say, and that's all I can
My
say.
life would have been easier if it just been all shit. You realize that,
I
right?
know. I'm so sorry, Vera. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. If it makes you feel better, the first episode's terrible too, so you'll have that.
Just when I think I'm out, they pulled me back in.
Anyways, all that being said, you can check out those reviews in more detail over on my secondary channel, Justin Janitor After Dark. But all that said, that's everything I had. Anything else of here? All
No.
right, with all that said, I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.
Be seeing you. I can't even remember the fucking thing.